For the next few days, they spent at the hotel. He didn't even try to touch her at all. He always came up with one excuse or another, yet she still gave him the benefit of the doubt, thinking that it could be stress from the wedding that made him uninterested in her. A few days later, they had gone back to their home and she had settled down and was so happy that she felt like she had finally achieved something in her life. She was now Mrs. Anayo, the wife of a wealthy man. She sat on her beautiful couch, crossed her legs, and was sipping red wines. Then she said aloud, so I am now a madam just like that. Oh God, thank you. Now you run this one for me. Nani said, smiling happily. Although H.E. still lived with them, Nani did not mind so much at first because Anayo was spoiling her silly. He bought her gifts and even bought a car for her. He gave him so much money, but 1 month and passed and they still hadn't consummated their marriage. Now she was frustrated, and as if that was not enough, Anayo had told her that they would no longer be sleeping in the same room as he needed his privacy and preferred to walk at night. She revolted, but when she saw that her husband Anayo was very serious about it, she had no choice but to move the guest room. So every night, while she slept alone on a big bed, her husband stayed alone in the other room, both living like strangers. She, however, noticed that Anayo and his best friend Eichi would spend the whole night in his room, giggling and laughing. This happened for 3 weeks, and Nani could not take it any longer. So one day, she confronted her husband and said, "Why do I have to sleep in a different room all by myself while you spend all night in the same room with your best friend Eichi? You claim to be working, yet all I hear is laughter and giggles. It's already been 2 months since we got married, and you have kissed me only once, and that was at the altar on our wedding day. You have not even fulfilled your marital obligations toward me. Can you please tell me what in the world is going on?" He screamed in frustration. "No, I don't do men," I said. "I work all day and night trying to provide for you and give you the life that you live. See the hair that is on your head. That alone is 2 million, and see the types of phone that you are using. The latest iPhone. You drive a Range Rover. If I don't work so hard, please tell me, how will I provide all these things for you?" I screamed angry. "Well, I want more. I want my husband. Is that too much to ask? In short, I am done with this marriage. I am leaving you. You can go ahead and marry that friend of yours or whatever he calls." I retorted angrily. "Please wait. Please stop. Okay, I'm sorry. It will really break my mother's heart if you leave me. Please stop. How do I prove you that I am not into men?" Looking confused, "It's simple. Perform your marital obligations toward me. Do your job, and just maybe your mom would have a grandchild to hold in about 9 months' time." Then he replied angrily, and so on, and he followed his wife into her room and performed his marital obligation to her. As soon as he was done, he immediately ran to the toilet and vomited. Disgust. When he came out of the next room, he could see H standing and fuming in anger, screaming, How could you do this to us? How could you?" H said, crying, and Anayo quickly hushed him and took him to his room. Nani had heard H crying and screaming like a baby, saying, "How could you do this to us?" But before she could get dressed and come out, her husband and H had both gone into her husband's room and locked the door. She could hear H crying and her husband comforting him, saying, "I promise I will never do it again." And then it was at this point that she knew that she had entered one's chance. The signs were older, but she chose to ignore them. Her husband was into men and not women. Then she quickly ran back to her room, weeping and crying. How could I not have known? The signs were all there. How could I not have known that my husband is into two men? How could I have made such a mistake? She said, weeping and crying. She decided that she needed to get evidence. So the following day, when they had gone to work and just before they came back, she mounted a secret camera in her husband's room, and it confirmed her worst fears. Her husband was into men. She was shocked to see that they even did. Her husband would wear a nightgown with red lipsticks and be dancing and twerking. Apparently, her husband was the woman in the relationship while she was the man. She wept and wept like a baby. She wished and had listened to her pastor's evidence and counseling. She wished that she had not allowed his money to cloud her judgment. She wished that she had not ignored all the signs that were visible and glaring. So she kept a secret camera for over 1 week, and what she saw with her own eyes broke her heart even more. She decided that she was leaving the marriage for good, as she realized that she was the third party coming between Anayo and his lover. One day, she could not take it any longer. So she confronted her husband and said, "How could you do this to me? You knew that you do not love women or want to have anything to do with them. So why did you marry me?" she asked, crying. "Oh, please come off it. You already knew. All the signs were there, but you chose to ignore it. You were only after my money, so why are you complaining now? You have finally found what you are looking for. Now you can rest. I have been trying to hide it, but you keep poking your nose into what does not concern you now that you have found out. So rest. Let me hear a word." And I replied angrily and walked away. So Anayo and his lover Ichi no longer hide their affection for one another. They would even spoon feed themselves and would laugh and play together while she would stare at them disbelief. They no longer tried to hide their love from her, since she already knew. There was no point. The name was heartbroken. She would cry and cry. One day she wondered how she ended up here. Then one day she decided that she had enough and that she was leaving him for good. After all, he did not even care how his actions had affected her or hurt her. But a few days later, after she had made that decision, she suddenly started feeling sick and took pregnancy tests at home, only to find out that she was pregnant. She did not know what to do. She knew that she did not have the resources to take care of the child. Besides, if she left now that she was pregnant, what would she tell people was her reason for leaving? She was in dilemma and decided that she was going to speak to her husband first and see his reaction, as that would ultimately guide what her decision would be. So she walked up to him and said, "I am pregnant, but I am getting rid of this baby because I can't continue to live like this. I can't do it," he said, crying, very shocked. For the first time in a long time, he looked at her very kindly and said, "Please, I know that I deceived you into marrying me, but please do not. I bought this child. I promise you that I will be good to you. Yes, I cannot promise you that I will love you, but I will take very good care of our child. My mother is very sick, and the only thing that she wants right now is a grandchild. Please do not abandon this child. We can reach an agreement, and amicable agreement, please." And I said, pleading, "But if you wanted a child, you could have just paid someone to carry your baby rather than punish me like this, rather than marry me, knowing who you are and why you do this to me." Then I asked, crying, and continued to beg her and apologize to her. Nanny agreed to carry the child for him. So they reached an agreement that he was going to pay her the sum of 10 million naira every month for her to keep her mouth shut. Aside from that, he was also going to provide for the home, and they would also remain married. They also agreed that in the public they would act as husband and wife, all lovely the way, but that in private he would continue his relationship with Aichi while she was allowed to date any man that she wanted to, but discreetly in public. Nani agreed because the offer was quite tempting, but she was also worried because she knew that as a Christian it was a sign of commit adultery, and she had always looked forward to experiencing real life and affection from my husband, but she realized that it was never going to happen. A few days later, he invited his mother over to his house and then broke the news of their pregnancy to her. Madam Mina replied excitedly and said, "Now I can stop faking that I am sick. I cannot live my life like this. And you, I thought you say you were a man. I know that you lack the right woman to bring back your sense." "Nonsense," Nani said, and looking at Madam Mina in shock. "Mama, you knew your son was into men, and yet you push him to marry a wife. Is that not weakness?" "Speak, Mama. Do I deserve this kind of life?" Nani asked, shocked and crying. "Wait. Oh, Mama, you are not sick? Also, Mama, are you trying to tell me that you knew my identity all along?" And you asked, looking shocked. "Of course. Now I had to pretend to be sick so that you would give me a grandchild, and it worked. As for you being into men, of course I knew all along. And for you, the signs were there that even a blind man could have seen them. So please do not blame me for your misfortune. It's your greed that made you marry my son. You cannot tell me that you did not know that he was into men." Madam Mina responded sarcastically and continued to weep. Oh, she wished she could turn back the hands of time, but she felt that she had come too far to just go back. So she carried her pregnancy and stayed in the shame she called a marriage, all because of Anayo's money. So outside behaved like a lovely couple, and when they were back at home, he left her alone for his true love. Nani went further and still had a total of 5 children for Anayo, but she refused to keep a male friend, saying that it was against her faith as a Christian. So Anayo was happy and continued to live his life, while Nani was always sad and lonely. Her life was void of love and affection. She was simply a baby-making machine for Anayo. She was always sad and wished she could turn back to hands of time, but it was already too late. Friends, thank you so much for watching my story to end. I would like to hear your thoughts on this one. Do you think that Nani already knew that her husband was into men before they got married? And do you think that she deserved that kind of life? For women who are stuck in marriage where their husbands are into men, what do you think? Is it way out from it? Especially for those who already have children. Should they turn a blind eye to the fact that their husbands are into men? Or should they leave? Please share your thoughts with me in the comment section. And please support my channel by subscribing to this, liking my videos, and sharing them with your loved ones. So now, until I come your way again with more interesting stories, goodbye.